Well, if you're okay with it, we'll jump right in. And I'd love to hear more just about your life and your story, how you ended up in Kamloops. So we could start with kind of how you grew up, where you were born and raised.
I was born and raised in the Lower Mainland. I was born in Burnaby and raised in Port Moody and Coquitlam. And my father was a police officer. I grew up in a bit of an authoritarian house, and my mother committed suicide when I was 8, and then my father and my mother were going through separations at the time, and when my mother died, my father, this is the type of man he was. He called us all out Sunday morning because she committed suicide the night before. She called, called my brother and my sister out. I'm the middle child, and basically told us, "You have an hour to cry, and then that's it. Don't want to hear no more." 2 months later, my dad remarried to a girlfriend, and I ended up, both my brother and I, we couldn't handle the fact that, 2 months after my mom had died, this new woman come into our house, and my father, when they got back from Mexico, they went to Mexico to get married, and when they got back from Mexico, my father told all three of us that this is your new mom, and you're going to have to call her mom from now on, not Kathy. And me and my brother rebelled and said, "Yeah, no, not happening." And so he gave us a choice: you either call her mom or get out. So we both left.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 11, and I haven't been home since.
And how old was your brother?
He's a year and a half older than me to the day. I was born he was born April 2nd, I was born August 2nd. And moved out onto the streets in Vancouver. Me and him kind of went separate ways. We kind of hung out together for a little while, but then we went separate ways, and he ended up in juvie jail out there. Not too long after that, I ended up there, and I had this uncanny ability to get out of anything. And then I went on. I've done 37 years of my life behind bars.
And is that in total or in one time?
Oh, that's total. The most I ever got was a 9-year stretch. Three 9-year bits, pretty much back to back to back.
And what was that like for you? What was your experience like in prison?
Sometimes fun. I have to admit that. Sometimes fun, especially in the early days. Jail's not so much fun anymore, at least not for me. All my friends have passed. I'm getting on in age.
And I want to just take a step back to when you left home and you were a child out on the streets. What was that like? How did you survive? How did you make do?
Well, for the most part, the really early days when I first moved out, I survived by, finding some type of shelter, usually in an underground parking lot. Find an old hippie van that you can see dust all over it. Nobody's been in it for a long time, so I'd break into it, and that's where I would sleep. And if I couldn't sleep there, then find the old cardboard boxes and make a dwelling out of them. And I would steal my food and panhandle and do the occasional job that I could do, which wasn't many, but Basically, it was a life of crime.
Did you meet any people along the way that really stuck out to you during that time?
Yeah, I've met a lot of people over the years that have stuck out for me. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, if you know me, you die soon. Because all my old friends are now dead and passed. Which kind of brings it home to me that it's going to be my turn soon. Not that I'm afraid of death. I welcome death. I welcome because I know there's no doubt in my mind that I'll be met by somebody at the pearly gates. I know I'll be allowed in, even though I've been a wretched fool most of my life. I've been through hell and high waters so many times.
How old were you when drugs came into your life?
Oh, 11 years old.
So when you went out on the streets?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, back then it was, marijuana and hashish, but that quickly grew to cocaine. And then once I hit the adult system, I tried heroin for the first time. And I remember even to this day, the guys that gave me a fix, I just got a wash, what they call the wash, and that's just what's left in the spoon after they have a fix. And the guy asked me, he says, "You feeling okay? Everything okay?" And I remember my response to this day. I looked at him and I smiled and I said, "It feels like my guts are smiling at me." And he laughed. He says, "You will be a junkie." And I said, "No, I won't." But I quickly became a really bad heroin user because I got out of Ocala, which was a gladiator remand center out in Burnaby. And I hit the street, and I wasn't even on the street half an hour. And this car pulled up and rolls down the passenger window, and he says, "Get in." And I recognized him from Ocala. He was probably the biggest heroin supplier on the west coast here. And asked me how I was doing. I said, "Not bad. Got out about half an hour ago." He said, "Well, come on." He took me down to his place, got me high, and offered me a job delivering for him. And so for about 6 months, I was delivering 10, 15, 20 kilos around the lower mainland. So it's, when you have access to that much, you tend to be a user.
Yeah. And how old were you at that time?
17.
That's really young.
Very young. Very young, but I made a name for myself very early of being a very trustable guy. If my very first pen bit in the penitentiary system, I got 9 years for 3 armed robberies that I didn't do. And I just didn't do them, but I kept my mouth shut.
Wow. So after you kind of got connected with this heroin dealer, supplier, right? What happened from there on?
I got used to having lots of money, and I mean a lot of money. And I was driving around nice cars. And then when my friend went down, he got shot. And when he went down, I kind of left standing around like, okay, what do I do now? And being accustomed to, an unlimited supply of drugs and being able to supply my habit, which was probably pretty close to a quarter ounce a day, which was disgusting amount. And all of a sudden, instantly, I went into withdrawal and I became super sick, and that was not what the doctor ordered. And I quickly picked up a gun and headed towards the bank. I knew I had to get cash so I could, buy some drugs and not feel what I was feeling. And it didn't quite work out as well as I thought it was, or I thought it would. And I ended up getting caught and sent away to the big house. And that quickly wound down to many more bits, and 37 years later, I'm getting out. And like this time is the first time I've been out 100% clean, or 100% clear of anything, any attachment to me. For 41 years of my life, I've had either probation, parole, bail, or been in jail. Never have I been free since I was 11 years old, 100%. And it feels good. It feels real good. Though I'm kind of used to, I guess you call it institutionalized, or what most people call institutionalized. What institutionalized actually means is you can be placed in any institution anywhere and be able to get along pretty much instantly, which I can, so I'm institutionalized. But a lot of people think that it means institutionalized is that I like prisons. And that you always want to go back, or always doing something to go back. Yeah, I guess it kind of means that too, but I'm institutionalized, and I do better when I have structure around me. If I have carte blanche to make any decision I want in my life, usually it don't go well, but I've been doing pretty good. Last time I was in was about 8 months ago.
And where was that?
Up in northern Alberta. I was doing what I refer to as a rubby bit, and I was only doing 11 and a half months after calculating in my dead time. And I got out, and they're supposed to give you a bus ticket to wherever you got arrested, or the equivalent distance. And they opened the door, kicked me out, and said, "Fend for yourself." So I ended up pretty much walking from Grand Prairie down to Edmonton. I got 3 rides hitchhiking, but nobody wanted to pick me up. And I arrived out in Edmonton with nothing, with a bunch of blisters on my feet, and ugly burnt head. I had blisters all over my head from my head getting burnt. And I finally got down to Edmonton. You got nothing, and you look around, and the last place you want to go is the downtown core of Edmonton, what they refer to as the hood. But I had to go down there because the only place that I know to go to was the Seed up in Edmonton. And you could though you couldn't get a place to sleep, they would give you food and they would give you clothing, which, you know, at that time, it's all I needed. So I went to the Seed and got clothing and food and seen some old people I knew, because I've used the Seed up in Edmonton, and very, very grateful for what they've done for me and my family over the years. And so I went up there. I seen a couple of workers that I hadn't seen in years, and you know, they just opened their hearts and their arms, you know, like I'd been gone 10 minutes. And though I didn't like Edmonton very much, and that's why I left Edmonton, went down to Calgary. I didn't know anyone in Calgary, so I was just sitting there along the side of the tracks one day. I was drunk, and there was a train slowly going through, and I had been contemplating life for the last hour and a half, and, you know, adding up all the things I had and what I didn't have, and you know, family, what I had from family, and my family and I, we contact each other once every 18 years. And I had no friends left. They've passed. And I was looking at the train going, yeah, let's go end this. So I had to walk across like 4 tracks, because it was a rail yard, to get to where the track that had the train on it. So I was stumbling across the 4 tracks, and just as I get to the train, you know, I was just gonna throw myself down underneath the wheels. And just as I get to the train, you hear the braking system engage. I mean, I wasn't going fast, it was only going about 8 miles an hour. Braking system hit, and it stopped before the next wheels come to me, and I was like, yeah, it's like throwing a rock at the ground and missing. And I'm like, oh man, Lord, you must have something for me to do, because I feel like you want me to get on the train instead of underneath it. I said, okay, Lord, take me where you want. And I remember that the front of the train had, and I didn't know that our train system up here bought out, the Canadian Pacific bought out Kansas City Southern. So it had a Kansas City Southern engine on the front of it, and I thought, hey, we're going to Kansas City. And we came out of Calgary, and I was on a grain train, so I had an overhang above my head, and a spot I could lay down. There's these little tiny seeds that were all over the area where I was going to lie down. So it was a nice, comfortable bed. I fell asleep. And next thing I know, I wake up and we're at the top of the pass. Many hours later, we're at the top of the pass and going over the Rockies, and it was about -20 and snowstorm. When I left Calgary, I was not prepared for that temperature, because it was 22 degrees the day before I left in Calgary. So, you know, it was already spring had hit, and so I was not expecting winter. I don't know why I didn't think of that. We're going over the Rockies, hello. But I woke up, I did have 2 jackets, and I laid one over my legs, and I had like 4 tea lights, these big monster tea lights in between my legs, and I warmed up enough to fall asleep, and I come to, and I had another shirt over my legs also. I come to, and the shirt's on fire. I'm almost on fire. Got rid of the shirt. And then about 3 minutes later, the train started rolling again. I fell asleep once we got down in elevation, and it warmed up a little bit, and I fell asleep. And I woke up here in Kamloops. I woke up, opened my eyes, and looked up at the mountain across from us. And we're in Kamloops, because I recognized the mountain instantly. I used to live up in Pritchard, which is not that far out of town here, and I recognize this mountain now. All right, let's get off here. I come walking down the main drag here, on this side of the river anyway. I'm walking down the track, or just off the tracks, and I asked this young native girl, who gave me a nice smile. She says, where can I find a shelter? So I just got arrived in town. She says, by far the best one in town, the sea goes straight down this road. And I was like, yes. To hear the sea, it's like, to me, it's like, a warmth in the heart to hear that, even though I'd never been to the sea in this town. For me to hear the words the sea warms my heart. And that's why I'm grateful to do anything for the seed. The last couple of days I've been putting up the tents down over here that's going to be helping out more people.
So you had said when you were on the train tracks in Calgary, the train stops and you said, I'll take it, Lord. So where have you seen, do you believe in God?
Yeah, I believe in God. God to me, I didn't always believe in God, because I'm one of those guys that you need to show me, show me proof before I believe in it, because I come from a world of convicts, and they will con you out of your underwear, so over the years, I've always felt that there was a God, because this is too beautiful of a universe for it not to be made by God or made by a God. And my belief over the years was, I believe there's a God, and I believe there's only one God. And he will appear before you as you need to see him, so that you can accept him. And he'll appear before, the East Indian guy as he needs to see him, so that he'll accept him. He will appear before the Muslim so that he'll accept him. But there's only one God. That's what I believe.
So how has he appeared to you throughout your life?
Well, to be honest, he never did, until I got to the Rising Above program I was telling you about up in Grand Prairie, and very heavily based, Christian based. And I chose that one just for that reason, because I've been baptized as a child, though I don't really consider that baptization, because it wasn't my choice. It's my parents' choice.
They came out of the tax office, so I just put them back.
When I went to the Rising Above program, I got challenged by my worker or my contact person. And every 2 weeks we would sit down on an individual basis and have a one-on-one meeting. And we were about 4 or 5 meetings in, and he's asked me, Shawn, he says, do you believe in Jesus? I basically told him what I just told you, what I think God is. And he says, well, actually, that's a lot of scholars believe that. He says, so you're in good company. He says, but he says, have you ever prayed to Jesus? I says, well, I've never really prayed to any God, unless I was in trouble. Hiding underneath a vehicle, and the police are all around and they're looking for me, and I'm praying to get some help here, which is unfair, and I don't think I should have been answered that way, but occasionally I did. But he says, well, I tell you what, he says, I can't meet you in 2 weeks. I'm taking that week off, He says, I'll see you in 3 weeks. I said, okay. He says, but here's a book. It was just a small writing book. He says, I want you to start tonight. And he says, when you get down before you go to bed and you say your prayers, he says, honestly, from your heart, ask Jesus to give you something. He says, think about it all day, what you're going to ask for. What do you need, want the most? So I did. I thought about it all day, and I was broke, flat broke. And I got a bad habit of cutting off my nose in spite of my face. Usually when I get broke, I turn to what I know the best, and that's pick up a gun and head for the bank. So I got on my knees that night and I said, Lord, I don't know if you're Jesus, I don't know who you are, but you are my Lord. I know you've been there all my life. I've never really asked you for anything. I could use a job, because you know me, I will do something stupid if I don't get one. So I went to bed. I woke up the next morning pretty early, and whoever gets up first makes the coffee. So I just finished making the coffee and the phone rings. So I answered the phone, and it was this lady who owned a business in town, and a moving company, Elite Moving. And she says whenever she's short of workers, she always calls Rising Above, because they tend to have people that need jobs. And she says, if you can find me 2 guys, that would be appreciated. I said, well, I only need to find 1, because she already have 1.
Okay, I'll hold the fort down.
And that was the very beginning of my eyes to be opened to Jesus. Because my instructions was, ask for 1 thing. When it comes, ask for 2 things. When they come, ask for 4 things. When they come, I'm like, slow down. It's just not going to happen like that. You might get 1 or 2, but by the time he got back 3 weeks later, and you have to understand that not only were every single one of my requests, which totaled 187, 187 came true. Not 1 time was I not answered. And it didn't just come true, it came true in droves. Just amazing how much. Like the job example. Very next morning, I go to work that day. At the end of the day, there was like 6 of us, 4 of us on salary and 2 of us on cash. And we're asked to go outside, and the manager and the owner are having a meeting, and they then call the 2 cash guys in, because if you work for her for a day, you get paid in cash. And so they asked the 2 cash guys to come in 1 at a time. So he goes first, and he comes up with cash in his hand. I go in, and she says, my worker or my manager tells me that you were by far the best worker I had today. He says, you were a horse, you're strong, and you didn't give up. She says, I really appreciate it so much, so I'm offering you full-time. Within 10 days, every single person above me either quit or got fired. Within 10 days of getting the job, I'm now in the manager's position. I'm driving around in a company vehicle with a gas card. That's the type of raise for 187 times it was given to me. Just massive response. So, and then the last one that I requested, I got a phone call. It's 4 minutes to 10, and I got a curfew at 10. Yeah, I'm driving a truck, but it's probably a 6-minute drive for me. I get a call, and Shawn, you need to get here now. He says there's a cop car outside doing a curfew check on you. I said, on my way. So I ran out of my girlfriend's house, jumped in the truck, and I pinned it. And I come up over the hill by the hospital. As you reach the crest of the hill, you can see the bottom where it crosses 100th Ave. And 100th Ave is your main street going through Perry. And as I hit the top of the crest of the hill, I see the light turn red for me. Now, I have sat at this light many times. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes. It's a slow light. And I knew if I stopped, I was getting hold of. So it closed. I quickly scanned to see if there was another car that might trigger it faster. Maybe somebody at the intersection, gonna press the button. Anything. Nothing. I closed my eyes. I pinned it. And I said, Lord, I'm not opening my eyes, so I need you to clear the intersection. Please do not let me kill anyone. And I kept it closed. I believed so much that I was willing to put somebody else's life on the line. And I hit the bottom of the hill where it flattens out. And I felt the truck flatten out. So I knew I was hitting the intersection. I opened up. I didn't look at the intersection. I just looked up because even if I seen something, there was no way I could stop. Because I'm now doing 110. I looked up just to see my light was green. And I looked. And when I got to the rearview mirror, I noticed there was somebody standing, and it hit the push button for the walking. He looked like Jesus. Like literally, he looked like him. Thank you. I kept going, and there's a lazy corner here about to get to rising above. When I come around the corner, probably doing 120. I was in a four-wheel drift. And I come out of the drift and straight into the parking lot. Slam down the brakes, come to a skidding stop, and the cop says, nice corner. He says, I'm gathering your Shawn. I says, yeah. He says, turn around, you're under arrest. And just as he does that, I turn around. I'm not going to fight him. I turn around, he gets me in his cuffs, and when the person that run rising above, she come out, and she's never there after 2:30. She's gone every day. Here it is, 10 o'clock at night, and I see her come out. She walks up and she puts her hand on the shoulder of him. He says, It's 1 minute. Normally I'm not here at this time of the day, but I'm here because of Shawn. I'm here because I was typing up a letter that I was going to give to Shawn because he's got to go to court tomorrow in Edmonton. And I was typing a letter stating basically after 4 months of a 6-month program, I've graduated Shawn 2 months early because he's doing amazing. He's got his own job, working for a moving company. He's now the manager. He's got a company truck. Just whatever it is that you had in your heart to make him go back on a 1 minute delay. She said, I would ask that Jesus come in your heart and open your eyes to what this man is as compared to what he used to be. Right about then, another cop car pulls up. And the guy gets out. He walks up and he says, calls the first cop by his first name, John or whatever. Hey, John. He says, I was just passing by and seeing if you need any help. He says, no. He says, I made the caller. He says, I got him in cuffs. I'm going to be transporting him soon. He says, I wasn't asked to come here. I was told to. As you know, I'm a Christian, and somebody told me I needed to be here. He says, yeah, I was at the mustard meeting when Mr. was first brought up. And we were told, very first opportunity that you have, get him off the street. Send him back. That was 4 months ago. I've been watching him. He speeds a little, but that's it. He says, he's doing good. He's doing 10 billion times better than we all thought he would. I was at a fundraiser last week with the mayor. And after hearing Shawn's story, says everybody at our table made a donation, including the mayor. Says, from what we understand, Shawn's a special case for rising above. Nobody thought he could be reached, but apparently he has. So I'm asking you as a friend, cut him some slack. First cop says, no, we were told to get him off the street. Second cop looks at him and says, yeah, I know. He says, but he'll go to court in 2 days. And I know this lady here will be standing in that courtroom. And I've seen it when she stood in that courtroom. When she walks in, normally you bow to the judge, show respect. 2 times I've seen her walk into the courtroom, and both times I've seen the judge stand and bow to her because of the amazing work that she does. She says, and he says, I know she's going to speak very highly of Shawn in 2 days, and he'll be released. In the end, she was able to, her and the other police officer was able to talk the arresting officer into releasing me and giving me a promise to appear, though he wasn't going to drop the charges of me being late by a minute. So, and sure enough, right after he drove away and I was released, she took me into her office and she says, I wasn't going to say anything until tomorrow when I give you this letter. I'm very proud of you. Shocked that you're not dead. I've heard so many stories about you. So many things, all the things that you would escape from, you should have been dead. The car rolled 19 times and you pop out the window and run across the field. It's just, I should have been dead so long ago, so many times. He says, I know the Lord has meaning for me. And I've always felt that. Once I realized the Lord is Lord, and He actually exists, I instantly had an answer as to why I've lived through the dozens and dozens and dozens of things that should have killed me. I survived an accident that I've done the calculations because I was watching when I was laid up in bed. I did the calculations. I was watching on Discovery, Mythbusters, and they did the accident things. And they showed you, put the formula on the screen, and I screenshotted it with my phone and figured out. I knew how fast I was going when I got in the accident, so I was able to figure out what the G-force was that me and my girlfriend went through. And we were 5.5 G's above the limit where you must die, where you should die. Anything over 10 G's in an accident, the body doesn't take. You come to a stop. The body stops, but everything inside your body keeps going. So the brain gets crushed to the front of the head. The lungs and the heart crushed to the front of the ribcage. And we hit at 15.58. Neither one of us had seatbelts on. And I'm amazed. I got out of the truck and I looked at my truck, which I just bought that night. My truck literally started at the firewall. The engine got pushed into the cab of the truck, and I was doing 155 when I hit him. And my best friend was right in front of me. We're down an old highway, and we both know the highway. It's bone straight for 37 kilometers. And at the end, there's 2 little corners, but we're at about the 25-kilometer mark. And a rancher had left a gate open, and a herd of cows were crossing the highway to the field across the other side of the highway. They thought the grass was greener over there or something. And he hit 3 cattle. And it was so foggy, literally, I couldn't see his truck. I just was seeing his taillights. And he was hauling a trailer. When I seen both his taillights go out, I looked down at my speedometer and I watched myself drop off 160 to 155. And heard my girlfriend scream. Instantly slammed my arm into her collarbone with my elbow. But that was enough. We hit. Her legs came up, and then she slid out from under my arm. And her legs went up onto the dash. And that's the only thing that saved her. I got pinned between the steering wheel and the seat. And when I got out and looked back, there was just my space. I was pinned in there. And I blew out my hip, my femur popped out, and the all broke into 3 pieces, and I should have been dead. I looked at that piece and I never understood it. My girlfriend and I were watching the Mythbusters sing, and she was like, "We're like 5 G's, 5.5 G's above death, where you should die." She says, "I don't understand it." I says, "Somebody upstairs has got a plan for either you or me, or both of us. Because there's no way we should have survived that. Shouldn't have." She ended up with a tear in her heart. The ambulance showed up, told them, "Take her." So she's going into shock. This is industrial first aid attendant. He says, "I didn't recognize it. She's going into shock. Please take her. And I will decide who we're going to take, guys. Take her. That's all there is to it. She goes first. It ain't up to you." Sure enough, she barely made it to the hospital, and she started having cardiac arrest because tear in her heart was filling up. There's a sac that goes around the heart. It was filling up the sac, which was putting pressure on the heart. We had to put something down in there and pull the thing and release the pressure. Otherwise, she was basically dying. I got her in the next ambulance, which took another 45 minutes. You know, my leg wasn't working, and for 2.5 years, I walked around with what is referred to as a drop foot. The foot just dangles. You can't lift it up. I'd have to flop my foot out there. And that was the first time I actually looked back at the Lord